Hello, firstly thank you for joining me, and today we're starting a new Masechta tractate using Steinsaltz edition, and it's Chullin. So I'm going to read the introduction to the first chapter, the first perek. It starts with the passage from Deuteronomy 12:21. If the name that the Lord your God shall choose to put his name there be too far from you, then you shall slaughter of your herd and of your flock, which the Lord has given you, as I have commanded you, and you shall eat within your gates, after all the desire of your soul. This chapter primarily deals with the delineation of the people fit to perform slaughter, in the manner in which one slaughters an animal, the utensils fit for use in slaughter, and the question of whether on the animal's body one slaughters it. On where on the animal's body one slaughters it. Although the term slaughter, shechita, appears in the Bible, there is no adequate elaboration of all the details of the act of slaughter in practice. The halachot of slaughter primarily learned through tradition. Some are halachot transmitted to Moses from Sinai, and some are based on the continuing mimetic tradition of how halachic slaughter was performed in practice. Many questions arise with regard to the halachot of slaughters, with regard to the substantive aspects of slaughter as well as its practical aspects. In terms of substance, if slaughter is considered a mitzvah, do the standard principles that apply to mitzvah apply to slaughter? Must it be performed exclusively by an adult Jew and not by a Gentile, a minor, or one halachic competence? What is the halacha with regard to slaughter performed by women? On a practical level, to what degree may one rely on those whose expertise in the area of halacha slaughter is uncertain or lacking practical experience in this area, or whose reliability in the fulfillment of mitzvah is suspect, e.g. heretics, transgressors, and Samaritans? These questions raise fundamental dilemmas. What are the halachic stages of an animal that was slaughtered in a prohibited manner, e.g. one that was slaughtered on Shabbat? How is it one to treat an animal when it is unclear whether it is properly slaughtered, in terms of who slaughtered it, or in terms of the manner in which it was slaughtered? What are the determining factors in reaching a halachic ruling in this case? Concerning the manner in which the animal is slaughtered, further questions arise. Given that the objective of slaughter is to cut the neck of the animal, is any manner of cutting acceptable, or must the cutting be performed in a specific way? And the question has ramifications with regard to the utensil used in performing the slaughter, and with which utensils the slaughter is not valid, or at least prohibited ab initio. The details of the halachot of slaughter also relate to the proper place of slaughter on the neck of the animal. The neck of the animal is relatively long, and it is necessary to define where precisely on the neck the rate of slaughter is located. In this context, the chapter discusses the relationship between the mitzvah of slaughter from the neck and the mitzvah of pinching sacrificial goods from the nape. What are the parameters of each? Resolution of these issues is the primary focus of this chapter. So let's dive straight in. So, typically in tractates and Masechta, there isn't a first daf. It starts with the second daf, and one reason that I heard is that in order to learn Torah, you must be humble. So the first page is a concept of humbleness, that you come with an open mind and not other preconceived ideas and knowledge. You should have an open mind to learning Torah in that sense. So the Mishnah, Hakol shecha chatin ushchi tasa kesheva chus mechevish shota v'katan shema yekal kalu esh shechi tasan v'chulun shecha shechatu v'achevim v'oim osam shechi tasan v'sheva. Everyone slaughters. What does it mean, everyone slaughters? Hakol shechatin. We have done to us to that. All competent adult Jews, including women and Canaanite slaves, may slaughter ab initio. Nevertheless, the widespread custom is that the community allows one to slaughter only if he is well versed in the halachah of slaughter, and has proven his ability to slaughter an animal with a steady hand and without fainting. The Ramah adds that the custom is that women do not slaughter. The sages also instituted that one who slaughters must go to a stage for authorization to perform slaughter. It is customary for the sage to give the slaughterer a certificate attesting to that authorization. And that's from the Maaseh and the Rashba. If one experiences slaughtered an animal, his slaughter is valid after the fact. By contrast, in the case of one who is not well versed on lachav slaughter, if he slaughtered without the supervision of others from the beginning to end, his slaughter is not valid. So to me that means, regardless of whether it was a kosher slaughter, he needs the supervision for it to be valid. Rambam Sefer Kedush Hilchot Shechita 4:4, Yodeya 1:1-3. There is a positive mitzvah in the Torah to slaughter domesticated and undomesticated animals and birds before eating them. The details of the halacha of slaughter are considered to be binding by Torah as is stated, and you shall kill of your herd and of your flock, which the Lord has given you as I have commanded you. Deuteronomy 12:21. See Sefer Mitzvah, positive mitzvah 146. Ritual slaughter involves cutting the animal's throat with a finely sharpened knife that has no notches. The knife is passed over the animal's throat without pressing down or inserting it under the skin or flesh. The slaughter moves the knife back and forth until the majority of the two simanim, either gun and part, are severed. In a bird, it is necessary to sever only one of two. Any flaw in the process of slaughter or in the knife invalidates the slaughter and renders the consumption of the animal prohibited. An animal can perform halachically valid slaughter, and the slaughter is valid even for a deaf mute, an imbecile, or a minor. One who does not allow a deaf mute one does not allow a deaf mute or an imbecile or a minor who cannot slaughter with a steady hand to slaughter an animal ab initio, even with the supervision of competent adults. The definition of an imbecile is one who goes out alone at night, rips his garment, sleeps in a cemetery, or loses what is given to him, provided that he does so in an irrational manner. If he slaughters without supervision, his slaughter is not valid. Some say that the same halacha applies to a minor with a steady hand who is well versed in the halacha of slaughter. Nevertheless, if any of them slaughters an animal with the supervision of a competent adult, his slaughter is valid after the fact. Some say that if a minor does not have a steady hand and not well versed in the halacha of slaughter, his slaughter is not valid even with the supervision of others. And that's Rambam Sefer Kedush Hilchot Shechita 4:5, Shulchan Aruch Yodeya 1:5, and see the Shach there. Unless they ruin the slaughter because they lack competence, and for all of them, but when they slaughter an animal and others see and supervise them, their slaughter is valid. There is an apparent contradiction between the two phrases of the Mishnah. The Tana begins, everyone slaughters an animal, indicating that their performing slaughter is permitted ab initio, and then teaches, and their slaughter is valid. Okay, their slaughter is valid only after the fact. Avaha, son of Vava, said to Ravashi, and does every use of the term everyone indicate that the action in question is permitted ab initio? If that is so in the Mishnah Tamor 2a, where it says everyone substitutes a common ruin, anyone including men, women, and by rabbinic law even Gentiles who substituted a non-sacred animal for a sacrificial animal, causes sanctity to take effect on the non-sacred animal, even if it is dominant to the Rambam Sefer Kabbalah Hilchot Tamor 1:4-16. Tamor. Substitute a non-sacred animal for a consecrated animal is mentioned in the Torah, see Leviticus 27:10. And Tractate Terumah is devoted to the halacha of substitution. The Torah prohibits substituting a non-sacred animal for any sacrificial animal with a blemish or unblemished. When it does so, violates the prohibition and is flogged. No substitution is prohibited. If one does substitute a non-sacred animal with a sacrificial animal, the animal is thereby consecrated with it, while the sacrificial animal retains its sanctity. The halacha applies with regard to both blemished and unblemished kosher animals, and once the substitution has taken place, even a consecrated substitute may not be utilized for labor or be redeemed. What ensues for the substitute varies with the type of offering for which it was substituted. In some cases, e.g. that a sin offering, the substitute is left to die. In other cases, e.g. that of a guilt offering, the substitute animal is left to graze until it becomes blemished, at which point it is sold and the money from the sale is used to purchase gift offerings. In yet other cases, e.g. that of a peace offering, the substitute is sacrificed on the altar side of the original animal. non-sacred animal for a sacrificial animal, both men and women, but is that also an expression indicating that it is permitted ab initio? But it is written, he shall neither exchange it nor substitute it good for bad or bad for good, Leviticus 27:10. Rashi answered, the reason the Mishnah used the word everyone is that it immediately teaches that it is not to say that it is permitted for a person to substitute. Rather, it means that if one did substitute a non-sacred animal for a sacrificial animal, substitution takes effect, and one who substituted the non-sacred animal incurs the sofeg. What's the sofeg? Although this term per many meaning is to absorb liquids, utilized in a more general sense to mean receive. In this context, to incur lashes. It may be related to a similar term safek, meaning strike, usually in the sense of clapping hands. The 40 lashes. The sofek ethar bottom is prohibited by Torah law to substitute a non-sacred animal for a sacrificial animal, and anyone who does so is flogged. When one is found guilty of performing a transgression punishable by lashes, he is bound to a post in a leaning post and flogged on his back and his chest. Although it is written 4 lashes he may give him, he may not exceed. Deuteronomy 25:3. The sages interpreted this to mean that the Tzaddik receives 39 lashes. He is examined before the flogging, and if it is determined that he would not survive the number of lashes, a court of 3 judges says how many lashes he can endure. This punishment of recurring lashes is generally administered to anyone who violates a prohibition. Nevertheless, there are exceptions. For example, the adjudicating court administers lashes only if the transgressor was forewarned immediately before performing the transgression and the 2 witnesses to a sin. And on the punishment of violating the prohibition nor substitute it. But here, since the Mishnah does not similarly qualify the statement, it indicates that everyone may perform the slaughter ab initio. Ramaha challenges. But a mission Arachin 2a, everyone who takes vows of evaluation and is thereby obligated to donate to the temple treasury the value fixed by the Torah based on the age and gender of the person valuated. And everyone is evaluated. I call them ma'arichin v'rachin v'cho. And the halacha evaluation of it in the Torah, Leviticus 27:1-8, and I'll explain in tractate Arichin. In a vow valuation, one vows, is incumbent upon me to donate the value of so and so, incumbent upon me to donate my value. One who does so then pays a sum defined in the Torah for the age and gender of the person who is the object of the vow. And therefore one who vowed to donate his fixed value is obligated to pay, and everyone who vows to donate the market value of a person as a slave to the temple treasury and is thereby obligated to pay, and everyone is the object of a vow if others vow to donate his market value. Is that also an expression indicating that it is permitted ab initio? But it is written, and if you shall cease to vow, there should be no sin. In Deuteronomy 23:23 indicating that it is preferable not to vow. And it is written, it is better that you should not vow. One must be careful to refrain from taking vows, and not even vow to give charity. Rather, if he has money, he should give it immediately, and if he does not have money, he should not vow, but should instead wait until he acquires money, and then if he wishes to vow, he may vow. If he is required to commit to giving charity, he should state that he is committing to it, but not taking a vow. This is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda based on the statement in the Gemara Nadam Tanei that Rabbi Yehuda holds that vowing and fulfilling one's vow is preferable only where he is in a position to fulfill his vow immediately and does so. E.g., where one first brings a non-sacred animal to the temple, vows to sacrifice the animal as an offering, and then immediately consecrates it. According to Rabbi Yehuda, this procedure is permitted despite the fact that it entails bringing an unconsecrated animal into the temple courtyard. In the case, it is permitted for one to vow when he is in times of personal trouble, or to spur himself to perform a mitzvah, or to avoid performing a transgression. Rather than say for Haflaya, 13:23-24, 3-7, and Be'er Hagola there. You should vow and not pay. Is 5:4, and it is taught in a brighter that with regard to that verse, better that then both this one who vows and does not pay, and that one who vows and pays, is one who does not take a vow at all. Or this is statement of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Huda says, better than both this one who vows and does not pay, and that one who does not vow at all, is one who vows and pays in fulfillment of that vow. Aha comments, and even Rabbi Yehuda states his opinion only in case one vows and says this animal is designated for sacrifice, as in that case there is no concern that he will fail to fulfill his commitment, since even if the animal is stolen or lost, he is not required to bring another in its place. Amud B. But in the case of one who vows and says, is it common upon me not to bring an offering? Even Rabbi Yehuda concedes that no, it is best not to vow at all. Likewise, it is preferable not to vow to donate a certain monetary value to the temple treasury. Apparently then, the statement in that mission, everyone takes vows of valuation, and everyone vows to donate the assessment of a person in the temple treasury, do not indicate that it is permitted to do so ab initio. Rav Ashi responded, and is that to say that every use of the term everyone is an indication that the action in question is not permitted ab initio? Rather, it is the term everyone in the Braita that states everyone is obligated in the mitzvah of sukkah, and in the Braita that states everyone is obligated in the mitzvah of ritual fringes, also an indication that they are not permitted ab initio. Rav Aha answered, I am not speaking about a case where it is stated that everyone is obligated. It is saying that fulfilling any obligation is permitted ab initio. Rav Ashi asked, if that is so, that which is stated, everyone who brings an offering places hands on the animal. Semicha places hands on the animal. When an individual brings an offering to the temple, he is required to place his hands on the head of the animal, with the exception of the firstborn of a kosher animal, the paschal offering, and the animal tithe. Excuse me. Let's check something. I'll just start again. Semich placing hands. When an individual brings an offering to the temple, he is required to place his hands on the head of the animal, with the exception of the firstborn of a kosher animal, the paschal offering, and an animal tithe offering. He must press with all strength between the horns and the head of the animal to be sacrificed before its slaughter. While placing his hands on the sin offering, a guilt offering, or voluntary burnt offering, the one who brings the offering confesses his sins. Although placing hands is obligatory, though to perform the rite does not invalidate the offering. In addition, there is no requirement to place hands on communal offerings, except for the bull brought for an almighty communal sin and the scapegoat on Yom Kippur. Women are not obligated to place hands on the offerings they bring, but according to some Tanaic opinions, they may place hands on that offering if they so desire. That also is present in the case that is not permitted ab initio, but it isn't written, and he shall place his hand upon the head of the burnt offering to accept it for him to effect the term from Leviticus 1:4. Aha answered, yeah, indeed, there are instances where the word everyone indicates ab initio, and there are instances where the word everyone indicates after the fact. Rather, concerning the term everyone that appears here in the Mishnah, where can it be determined that the expression indicating that it permits the ab initio, creating a apparent contradiction in the Mishnah that would be difficult for you? Perhaps an expression indicating that everyone's slaughter is valid after the fact, and there will not be a contradiction in the Mishnah, that will be difficult for you. Rav Ashi said to Rav Aha, I find the phrase and the slaughter is valid to be difficult for you. But the better Tana teacher and the slaughter is valid, which expression indicating that it is valid after the fact, including by referring to the initial phrase in the Mishnah, everyone's slaughter is an expression indicating that it permits ab initio. As if it is indicated that it is valid after the fact, why do I need two phrases teaching that it is valid after the fact? Rabbi Ba'ula says, the resolution of the conflict in the Mishnah, that this is what the Mishnah teaches. Everyone slaughters, and even a virtually impure pure person may slaughter a non-sacred animal ab initio. The Gemara interjects, what is the purpose of stating that a virtually impure person may slaughter a non-sacred animal ab initio? There is no prohibition against rendering non-sacred meat impure. The Gemara answers that the reference is to non-sacred animals that were being prepared according to the strictures of sacrificial food. Chullin Daf Kodesh. In earlier times, there were people who were fastidious in avoiding ritual impurity and would treat all the food as though it was sacrificial food, and they were thereby accustomed themselves to the higher standards so that they would be prepared when they actually ate sacrificial food. Likewise, there were people who were accustomed to eat their non-sacred food according to the instructions of the Ramban. And the Tana holds that the halacha states of non-sacrificial food that were prepared in accordance with the strictures of sacrificial food is like that of sacrificial food insofar as it is prohibited to render such food impure. The Gemara asks, how does an impure person act in order to ensure that he will not render the flesh of the slaughtered animal impure? The Gemara answers, he brings a long knife and slaughters the animal with it, so that he will not come into contact with the flesh of the slaughtered animal. Rabbi Ba'ula continues his interpretation of the Mishnah, and the reason the Mishnah also indicates that he may not slaughter ab initio is that with regard to sacrificial animals, he may not slaughter them ab initio with a long knife, as he comes into contact with the flesh. But if he saw a sacrificial animal and said, it is clear to me that I did not come into contact with the flesh, his slaughter is valid after the fact, and it teaches this is halacha with regard to all people except for a deaf mute, an imbecile, and a minor, who even if they slaughtered only non-sacred animals, their slaughter is not valid even after the fact. The reason Sage deems the slaughter not valid is that people in these categories interrupt the slaughter, unless they press the knife in the course of slaughter, unless they conceal the knife beneath the windpipe of the gun in the course of an inverted slaughter. Interrupting, pressing, and concealing are flaws in the act of ritual slaughter that render the slaughter invalid and consumption of the animal by prohibited. Interrupting is defined as a case where the slaughter begins to move the knife across the neck of the animal or the bird, and interrupt this movement after cutting the gullet or the windpipe. In this case, the animal may not be consumed even if the slaughter was subsequently completed. In the case of pressing, which also invalidates the slaughter, the knife cuts into the gullet or the windpipe by being pressed down onto them instead of slicing the animal's neck, using a back and forth motion as required. Concealing involves inserting the slaughtering knife into the animal's neck between the gullet and the windpipe and severing one of the two from below instead of severing them from above as required. This too invalidates the slaughter. Two additional major flaws that invalidate the slaughter are ripping the gullet or windpipe from its place before cutting it, and diverting the knife from the place of slaughter in the course of the slaughter. The Gemara asks, and if so, with regard to the clause that follows in the Mishnah, and any of them who slaughtered an animal and others see and supervise him from the slaughter is valid. To which case is the Mishnah referring? If we say that the reference is to a case of a deaf mute and then seen on a minor, why would it formulate any of them who slaughtered? Since it stands adjacent to that halacha, the Tana should have formulated the phrase if they are slaughtered, and if they slaughtered rather. Perhaps the reference is to the case of a richly impure person who slaughtered a non-sacred animal. The Gemara rejects that possibility as well, but didn't he say that in that case he slaughtered the animal even ab initio? And rather, perhaps the reference is to the case of a richly impure person who slaughtered the sacrificial animal. Tamei, an entire order of Mishnah Taharat is devoted to this fundamental category of impurity, and it is the subject of the passages throughout the Talmud. Ritual impurity is a Torah edict related to hygiene and categorized as a statute, a mitzvah whose explanation is unknown. The term in the Torah for non-kosher animals is identical in the term for richly impure person, tamei, though the concepts are unrelated. Most ritual impurity stems from illness, body discharges, or the death of a person or an animal. It is not prohibited to eat or touch a ritually impure item, but as ritual impurity is in the antithesis of sanctity, a ritually impure person may not eat or touch consecrated items and may not enter the temple. Although it is prohibited for a priest or Nazarite to become ritually impure, the prohibition relates only to impurity imparted by a corpse, not other forms of impurity. By Torah law, Gentiles cannot contract ritual impurity. There are various degrees of ritual impurity, depending on the source of the impurity. A human corpse, the ultimate primary source of ritual impurity, is the most severe category of a source of ritual impurity. A person or vessel that comes in contact with a corpse becomes a primary source of ritual impurity. Additional primary sources of ritual impurity include the carcass of an animal, that and that of a creeping animal, semen, non-eating woman, a zav, a zava, and a leper. A vessel or fluid that comes in contact with a primary source of its impurity assumes first degree rich impurity status. An object that comes into contact with an item with first degree rich impurity assumes a second degree rich impurity status. Contact with second degree rich impurity creates third degree rich impurity status, and contact with third degree rich impurity creates fourth degree rich impurity status. Non-sacred animals can assume second degree rich impurity, Cherubim can assume third degree rich impurity and sacrificial food, and assume fourth degree rich impurity. You slaughter the sacrificial animal. The Gemara rejects that possibility, as in that case, if the ritually impure person says it's clear to me that it did not come in contact with the flesh, it is sufficient, and there is no need for supervision. The Gemara answers supervision is necessary in the case of a richly impure person who slaughtered the sacrificial animal, to account for a case where the richly impure person is not before us, so that we can ask him whether he came into contact with the flesh. The Gemara asks, is this like a richly impure person who slaughtered the sacrificial animal learned from an analysis of the Mishnah here? It learned explicitly from the Mishnah then in Vachim 31b, with regard to all those who are unfit for temple sacrifice, temple service who slaughtered. Kol habsulin shechatu, permitted for all those unfit for temple service to slaughter sacrificial animals. I'm already here, even after you take an order. The exception is a richly impure person who may not slaughter the sacrificial animal ab initio, even if he stands outside the kohen and extends his hand to slaughter the animal inside the kohen, as the sages issue a decree in this case lest he touch the flesh. If he knows that slaughter the sacrificial animal slaughter is valid, and is fit for offering after the fact. That's the Rambam Sefer Kedushin, Sefer Avoda Hilchot Pesulei Hema Kedushin 1-2. Offering the slaughter is valid, as the slaughter of an offering is valid ab initio when performed even by non-priests, by women, by king and state, and by impure individuals. And this is the halacha even with regard to offerings of the most sacred order, kasher kadoshim, burnt offering, sin offering, guilt offering, and the communion peace offering included in this category. There is slaughter exclusive in the northern section of the temple courtyard, and those that are eaten may be eaten only on the day the animal is sacrificed and the night following that day. In addition, they may be eaten only by a priest and only within the temple courtyard. The prohibition against misuse of consecrated property applies to these offerings from the moment they are consecrated. After the blood has been sprinkled on the altar, the prohibition against misuse remains in effect with regard to the portion of the offering consumed on the altar, but not to the portion of the offering that may be eaten. Provided that the impure do not touch the flesh of the slaughtered animal, thereby rendering impure, the Gemara answers. The Mishnah here is the primary source. There, since the Tanna taught the rest of those disqualified for temple service, he taught the case of a richly impure person who slaughtered a sacrificial animal as well. And if you wish, say instead that the Mishnah in there is the primary source, as is standing in Tractate Zevachim, which deals with sacrificial animals here. Since the Tanna taught the case of a richly impure person who slaughtered a non-sacred animal, he also teaches the case of a richly impure person who slaughtered a sacrificial animal. Worse, this richly impure person mentioned in the Mishnah is one who became impure with what form of impurity? If we say that he became impure with impurity imparted by a corpse, this is difficult, as the Mishnah states, and who's ever in the open field touches one slain with a sword, Numbers 19:16. So what does that mean? Tomei Mace, one who contracted impurity imparted by a corpse. A corpse is the ultimate primary source of ritual impurity. A person or object that becomes impure with impurity imparted by a corpse becomes a primary source of ritual impurity, and imparts ritual impurity to people and vessels for a minimum period of 7 days until it is purified with the sprinkling of the purification waters, which includes the ashes of the red heifer and immersed in the ritual bath. A corpse imparts ritual impurity to contact through being carried, as well as uniquely through impurity in a tent, which involves a person or vessel being under a common roof with the corpse. Ritual impurity is transmitted not only by an intact corpse, but also by parts of the corpse. Although there are many complex provisions with regard to the parts of the body significant enough to impart this form of ritual impurity, many authorities maintain that only Jewish corpses transmit impurity in a tent, and this is a halachic conclusion as well. halacha which impurity imparted by a corpse appear in primary tractate Arlot. That's the end of the daf. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free, and wish you a very good day. All the best. Bye.